Please, you're closer than anybody else.
Hey, Sonny.
How you doing?
Did you get it?
Go around.
Yeah.
Is he okay?
Yeah, he's ready.
We're making progress on the CMH.
Well, and now
We're Legion buddies.
Nate's gone. All right, we're going to start in just a minute here. I'm not going to start without him. It's okay. All right. Where's my agenda? That helps me. Okay, we're going to get started here. We will call to order the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners study session for Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. Let's rise for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Sarah.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Klaus,
Here.
Crawford,
Here.
Lathrop, and Collette as excused.
Okay, thank you. Now is our chance for first public comment. Sarah, will you read the rules, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson. Please be respectful and refrain from personal or political attacks.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody for first public comment today? We have all the staff over here and the public over here. Notice that hi. Okay, we will move on then. Budget information. Nate?
May I start by introducing
Please.
our, very
Please do.
excited to introduce to you our day 3 of Donna Kinsey. She's our new HR director. Come on up to the podium,
To the
Donna.
microphone and say hello, please.
It has been quite a process to get Donna here. Not her fault, our fault. We went through quite a process with some HR director applicants, and you guys know the history. We are very excited to have her start, and she's been day 3 for us. You can say a few words.
I'm just going to say hi, and I'm honored to be here, and thank you guys for choosing me for this position, and I hope to do a great job for you.
No song?
No, yeah, a little before we had a little joke. I said I was going to come down here and sing a song and do a little tap dance for you, but I was just pulling your leg.
Bob asked because sometimes he does that.
We'd
Yeah,
rather have you
I
do
was
that
pulling
than
Bob's
Nate.
leg. So, yeah.
Not fair.
We'd
Looked like
prefer
he
to
could
you to dance
understand my
than Nate,
personality,
we
so
just
I
don't
was
do
like,
that.
hey, yeah, I want to go down, and but no.
Yes.
Great. Thanks.
Donna has
So,
a lot
welcome.
of energy
Yeah,
and
just a
a
little. Mm-hmm.
lot of passion for HR, which
Good.
takes a unique person to have a lot of passion for HR, but a lot of energy and a lot of wisdom that comes with her through all the experience that she's had for decades in the human resources field, so we are very lucky to have her. So
All right.
thank you for
Thanks.
coming.
Well,
Thank-
welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thanks.
Donna.
I'm actually sneaking out.
Okay, fair enough.
So tonight, we had sent out information to the commissioners, specifically asking for questions that you may have for any department head or administration to clarify things within the budget. And we also sent the same type of email to the elected officials and department heads, offering or inviting them to come tonight to speak to you specific to items that they had either been approved for or not approved for through their budget process. The sheriff has asked to address the board, and I think that's a great thing. And I have gotten a few questions from commissioners that we can either answer piece by piece or point by point, or we can have the commissioners ask them specifically to Dean or I, or any elected official or department head that is here, however you want to do it. But we do have a agenda, and it
We
does
do.
show commissioner questions first, so.
Well, recommended budget, which we have, staffing and FTE requests. Do you have anything
Yes.
specific on that? Let's go with that.
Where did that go? Where did that go? It's in the packet, right? So there, you had asked specifically who had asked for positions countywide, which positions were approved and not approved. And basically, every general fund position that was requested was not approved. Any position that was within a enterprise fund or self-funded fund, like the Health Department or the Commission on Aging, we had discussions with those managers and discussed the need for those positions, and we did approve some of those positions. Those are in your packet. Specifically, we approved the office specialist and the hearing and vision technician for the Health Department and the medication management nurse for the Commission on Aging.
Okay.
Any
Capital
questions
improvement?
about that?
Oh. Yes, Tom?
How many full-time positions are unfilled and that we're setting aside money in the budget for the day that we do fill them? Are there any vacancies that we just don't have anybody in right at the moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how many vacancies there are off the top of my head.
But we've included them all in the budget should they be filled?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
We have-
Generally, what happens if they're part of the approved staffing plan, they're budgeted, and they would show up in the personnel detail as just a vacant position, and that's not uncommon. We have, corrections is probably the most understaffed right now, but we have a few of those throughout all of the, not only the general fund, but some of the other funds as well. But we could not give you a count.
And then
We can
because
look into that.
we've gotten out of the business of county planning director and commission, and we were starting to look at community development to maybe be the next step, do we have the staff for that, or should that also be included in the budget?
It is included in the budget. We have a certain amount of money placed in the Community Development Fund,
75,000.
75,000 for, as a placeholder. We have not yet decided if that's going to be a person or a contracted service.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at,
That's
yeah.
correct.
But do you think that's enough?
I do think that's enough at this point,
Okay.
yeah. So
Sonny? Oh.
we do have one, and the sheriff is going to speak to this specifically. The only position that I'm aware of at this time that we have held vacant is the records specialist for the Sheriff's Department under Department 307. That, I think this is the third year, the sheriff's going to talk to you about this at his time, but that is the only position I'm aware of that we have held as a vacant position and not allowed it to be filled.
Sonny?
Well, just to clarify, because I already know the answer, but I'll still ask because I think the public and the rest of the board needs to know. I want to make sure that we have set aside in the 2019 budget those funds that we identified to handle the additional mental health services within the county jail.
Those funds are in the 2019 budget under the corrections budget. Captain Ritter and Dean worked on that solution and was able to do that within the existing requests.
Our recommendation, Chris and Nate and I and Captain Ritter and the sheriff have all reviewed the contract from CMH. We've asked for a few things to be changed, and it's now back to CMH, I believe, for their review. So hopefully by the time we meet, the first meeting in November, we'll be able to have a contract for you to at least review. We have put a target start date of January 1 on that contract because of where we're at in the year. But, you know, it's going to take them a little while to fill the position and make sure we get the right fit. But very excited to see this happen. I outlined the program to the community, or the Community Corrections Board last night. They were very excited that we were making this effort to improve the mental health services in our jail, because I think we all feel that there is some deficit there.
Okay. Tom?
Well,
And then Ron.
One of the things I've been reviewing is the replacement of vehicles, especially in the largest department, the sheriff's department. So I've been catching up on how that's happening, but if the sheriff wants to address that when he speaks, that'd be great. And I have watched the video. There's a very nice video that was shared with me today.
Ron?
I'll have Have we put anything in the budget for the irrevocable trust to fund that, or the pension? And if not, is there money that could be put into that?
To date, we have not put any money aside for an irrevocable trust.
Okay.
There is, as you and I have spoken, there are funds available that if the commissioners choose to do that, we can start to place money in that fund. I think that Mr. Bott has some thoughts that he would like to, share, and Mr. Forsythe as well, about the possibilities and what that would look like.
Because it would be good to get it started. Just no time to start saving like the present.
Chris, do you want to?
Yeah, I
Sure.
can just describe the process that we went through over a year ago now, working with outside counsel who came up with a draft of an irrevocable trust. And that draft, I would say, is substantially completed. We'd have to get it out, we'd have to look at it. Both Dean and I would have to do a review and finalize that with outside counsel. If you recall, at the time it was discussed over a year ago, the thing that the board should be aware of is, under state law, you have to put that money in safe investments, things like CDs, low interest bearing accounts. So by law, whatever money is put into the irrevocable trust is probably going to earn 2% or less of interest. Now, understanding that may be a good thing, and it's probably a really good thing when there's market instability. However, if MERS is doing well with their investments, and that money is put in an irrevocable trust, number one, it can't earn the same higher rate of interest that MERS accounts are earning, and two, given its nature, it's irrevocable. Once the money is put in there, it has to stay there. It's put in a lockbox almost. It can only be used for the pension obligation. I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just telling you just the legality of it. And again, so if the board decided that they did want to put funds in an irrevocable trust, we can get out that document, we can finalize it, and we can present it to the board at a future meeting.
Tom?
Yeah, to be specific about that, MERS won't accept the money that sits in the irrevocable trust account as money that is counted by them towards the pension percentage. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Plus, it's not as good an investment because ideally the MERS will pay more than 2%. There's only been a couple of times where it might have been that or negative, and it should be making at least 5 or 6%. So could be 3 times as much. So I think it's a great idea to have the irrevocable trust account prepared, but I think we should put more money into MERS and OPEB prior to that, because we get a benefit from it.
Okay.
You mean a higher percentage of yield, correct?
Yes.
Right. Yep. The interest.
Yes.
Ron?
But if we were to make the extra payments and we didn't have the backup plan with that trust and the county fell short, just because we made payments 10 years prior and made double payments, still would put us in a bad spot for failing at 10 years down the road. Be like making an extra house payment. Well, you make an extra house payment for 5 years, you still get 90 days delinquent, you're still at risk of losing the house. So that's.
When is the next experience study? Is that 2 years?
They'll start working on that probably in 2019. And that's, I guess, one of my concerns. I know that we'll have a reset with MERS, and it's more likely than not that they'll tell us that we have to pay more, and that they would most likely lower their investment rate of return from, it was 8% for a long time. They lowered it in 2015 to 7.75%. And all of those things would mean that you would pay more. The thing that you're very fortunate to have here is you have an agreement with MERS. For 16 years, you have a fixed payment. I don't think that will change. And currently, when that amortization was reset from 14 and shrinking to a 16-year amortization, which you made your first payment this year at $5.9 million, you've done everything right. You made that payment early this year. You're paying more into the system now than you were required based on the valuation with that longer amortization. And I guess my concern with the irrevocable trust, I think at some point that in time that does make sense. As your finance director, I would say let's wait until we get to that 60%. We're still trying to get to that mark with MERS. We know that we don't have a problem with Treasury because our payment is not more than 10% of our governmental fund revenues at this time. So there's nothing that would prevent you from doing that, but I still think right now it makes the most sense to put, if you decide to put additional money over and above the 5.9 million, it would do more for you with MERS than it would in the irrevocable trust. And I'm a little concerned what they do to us next year when they have another 5-year study.
But we do have funds available. If that is what you choose to do, there are funds that we can place into that, depending on the amount. We do have some available for it.
Yeah, because, we're pretty sure they're going to lower that rate of return, so that unfunded gap's going to grow just because of that. So the next board shouldn't be shocked if they see that, that gap has increased, even though their rate of return has done pretty good, and it's just because of how they've reset that, so.
Okay. Any other, well, we were in staffing and FTE requests, but it's kind of a free-for-all. Yes, Bob?
The record, what was that official term, record keeper or whatever?
Office specialist?
Refresh my memory on why we haven't filled that for 3 years.
Well, that's
I see a
Well,
hand up there. The sheriff can come up and answer.
In 2015, there was a request that went out to all of the departments to basically reduce their budgets by a certain percentage to meet a target. We were trying to balance. We were looking at a deficit situation. And one of the things that the sheriff's office looked at, we worked with them. It was kind of and this was true with all of the departments, to meet that target, the decision was made to hold that position and not fill it. And it's been held as a vacant position. It's still in the approved staffing plan, but it's not been budgeted.
Do they have officers doing that work now, or do they have that split up with other staff?
The office specialist is a specific job classification under the records division, and there are 10 or 9 or 10 office specialists that do the work. They do the records management for both the city, police, and the county sheriff's department.
Have you taken a good look at whether we need to fill that or not? Or?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
And the sheriff is going to speak to this. We do not have that position in our recommended budget. We are comfortable with that recommended budget, and once the sheriff is able to make his presentation, I'm guessing we're going to get into that a little further.
Okay.
But we did talk to the prior finance director and the prior administration about this position last year. And again, as that being then the undersheriff, acquiesced the position through the budget, as it still was not quite where we wanted to be financially.
Okay, why don't we move on to capital improvement recommendations? Can we do that?
As requested, Mr. Berry has provided, and Joe is here, if he would like to answer any questions or give you any additional information. He prioritized a list for the CIP for 2019, and that is, you all have that, correct? We had to have it blown up so I could read it.
Yes.
We all have it.
Help me as well.
Yeah, she gave out a sheet. Talking about this sheet here?
Yes, that
Yeah.
is yes.
Yep.
Those are the capital improvements that Joe is recommending we focus on for 2019. and these requests have been budgeted.
So they're all in there. They're
all
all
in
in the
there.
budget. From the red high right down to the low? All of it is in there? Or
That
there,
is correct.
all of it? Okay.
In addition to this, Joe, can you come up here?
Up to the microphone, please.
Uh,
Thanks, Joe.
I think Joe should give you a brief listing of the capital improvements that we've done this year. He's been going down a list. They've been marking off, and we've got some programs going currently. We're going to do a new boiler for the court. Joe's done a lot of work here this year after being hired, in May, June, to take a lion's share of that capital improvements for 18 and get those accomplished, so.
We did a couple things, replaced the roof at the Civic Center
Can you
pool.
put the microphone up? Because
Sorry.
people keep texting me, telling me that they can't hear.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. A couple of the big projects that you've already seen the pictures of, the Civic Center roof and the Pool project. There are a couple of HVAC units on the Civic Center itself that should be delivered here in 2 weeks. And then we'll install those. Those will be all set for the Civic Center improvements per the recommendations by Paragon when they came through and did their inspection here approximately a year and a half ago. I was able to fix a couple of large project HVAC units that they recommended replacement. We were able to repurpose them and fix them accordingly without
Yeah, they mostly can't hear
actually
Ron.
warranty costs is what we incurred as a county. Going to be looking at replacing a boiler for the Hall of Justice because the two that are down there, both of them are obsolete, and one of them is giving us a lot of issues to where the controls replacement would be approximately $20,000. I can buy a brand new one for approximately $30,000. I'm finishing up the bids for that, and that'll be presented to you in a couple of weeks for approval to get that process going. We're working on, let's see here, some wiring with IT. My guys are helping out with that. A couple of other big projects. We're looking at doing some HVAC replacement on the public service building. And that's a lot of the bigger stuff right at the moment.
Not to mention the painting of the LAC. There's some construction going on in the jail currently. There's a lot of things occurring right now in the way of facilities that have been either ignored previously or unfunded. So it's been a great year for capital improvements. Sonny?
Joe, I always get frustrated when we look at the Hall of Justice. This building's 10 years old. How can we be in a situation where we've had to replace HVAC units and now we're having to deal with a boiler? I don't understand that.
I wish I could tell you just coming into it cold. The units they put in there were good at the time. I'm not sure what drove them to install the ones that are in there now. But the ones I'm looking at are 96% efficient versus an 80%. So we'll be able to recoup some of our costs through energy savings. The building itself, I really don't know what to tell you as far as what was done in the past. I'm just dealing with what we currently have to try and make it better. There's some outside facade issues that I'm working on as well, trying to seal up a lot of the block, just to try to take care of a lot of the cracks and things that are happening due to settling and things of that nature.
Well, we do have to remember that the cornerstones of that building were two old stone churches that were 100 years old. So, you know, we have to allow for a little bit of that. But, you know, the mechanics drives me crazy. You know, the idea that because we've replaced both HVAC units, I believe, and now we're having to deal with the boilers. And it's just amazing to me.
Well, one of the other things that we're doing too is the HVAC units up on the roof. We're not running correctly, so I've had the manufacturer come out, made some recommendations. We did a few repairs. I've got a quote coming right now, which should be approximately $1,800 to get all 3 units running, as well as I'm talking with the architect to find out exactly how is this system designed to run, because it currently isn't being run that way as per design. So once we get that, that should take us back to a neutral spot, and then we can look at energy improvements from that point. But basically take care of what we currently have in place.
I think Bob and then Tom and then Ron.
Have you developed any scheduled maintenance or anything like that for any of these units, especially for the new ones coming up?
We're talking about it right now and trying to set things up with the manufacturer, but right now we're still in a firefighting mode to bring us from where we were up to where we can start doing proper PMs.
Because that could be, I mean, that doesn't explain all the reason, but that could be part of it, of why they didn't last quite so long, but it's still hard to imagine. I kind of agree with Sonny, 10 years isn't that long at all, but.
I wish I had more information for you, but just coming in on the end of it.
And to that point, Commissioner, Joe asked for and we approved the purchase of a software to help him track all of that preventative maintenance, warranties, things of that nature.
Excellent.
Okay, Tom?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite words, warranties. How long will a warranty be for those new ones when you have replaced them? How long?
The new boiler will have a 20-year warranty on it as
20,
far as
okay,
the
yeah.
main components. The boiler system itself, the controls and the associated wiring will have a 1-year warranty, but then I have an actual manufacturer's rep living in town for Lochinvar. So I have factory support right here locally.
And we didn't have a working warranty with the ones that we're going to replace?
The ones that they're so far out of warranty.
Okay, out of warranty. Okay, that's important. I'm glad you mentioned energy savings. Are there any other things that you'd like to point out that will actually show us in our utility bills, energy savings?
I just finished up a quick one right today
Okay.
regarding the just the swimming pool pump. By engineering in some changes, I'm looking at approximately a $4,000 energy savings from
Okay.
where we were, just on how we're operating just one motor. I'm in the process of data logging the new unit that's outside the pool, the new dehumidifier, and I should have that data in another 2 weeks, but that should show at least the 12% that I'd mentioned when we first came to you to purchase the unit.
Okay, well, I get excited about energy savings. I should do it at my own house because I have an old house and it loses all kinds of energy all the time. The other thing that I mentioned about when you first started, I think, is how we can be the best citizens in our neighborhood and cleaning the sidewalks. And I just want to know if we have the money to do that because we may have the sidewalks cleaned around the building and the parking lots clean, but we're also responsible for the sidewalk in front of our building, the city sidewalk. Now, they run sweepers across that, snow blowers, and they do their job, but it's not quite complete. And it would really please me if I could point at our building and say, our sidewalks are clean, please clean yours, because it's hard to get everybody to clean their sidewalks in the wintertime, even though the city makes an effort in the morning to clean them. It doesn't last all day, and we need to keep on top of that. Do we have the money to pay for that?
Well, right now, we have 2 Steiners in the shop right now that we're prepping up for winter. So I do have a lot of the equipment. We're looking at purchasing just a walk-behind snow blower. Everyone knows they're less than $1,000, and I do have the monies for that. And then it's just working it out with our scheduling to make sure somebody's down there at all times to make sure it stays clean.
Okay, yeah, even jail trustees, because I've seen them do some work outdoors.
That's one of the avenues we have.
Any chance to get some of the jail trustees outdoors when they don't get a chance to go outdoors is something on my list, so, thanks.
Ron and then Bob.
Joe, you mentioned you were having conversation with the architect regarding the mechanical system for the building. And are you really having a conversation with the architect or the mechanical engineer that actually knows the system and not the architect?
They're one and the same on this project. It's a
Okay.
company out of Detroit that has gone bankrupt, but has been repurchased by the actual architect, mechanical engineer that designed the system. So he's going through his records right now from the bankruptcy to find our system. They're out on the website right now using the Hall of Justice Pictures as one of their flagstone projects.
Okay. Was it a local firm that actually did the work? Contract?
I'm
You
not
know?
sure who actually
Okay.
did the work. I'm thinking it is local, but the architect was from downstate,
Right.
from the Detroit area.
Because if we're paying anybody for information on that, it would seem to be easier to work with people that actually did the install. They should understand it, but just a question.
No, I'm trying to find as-built from, our current files, but there's nothing I'm finding that is a narrative that states okay, this is supposed to run this way. Nobody remembers. And there's been so many changes to the system that we're kind of chasing our tail. So I need to find out, how was this initially designed to run, and then we can try to get back to that point.
Thank you.
Bob?
Is there one location that keeps the as-built prints?
Everybody has their own as-built. Every contractor, they'll take the initial prints, and they'll write their as-bills up, and then they'll maybe give me a copy unless I specifically state, which I do now. I need an as-built for how you're
Yeah, I
putting
would
this
think
in.
we would want an as-built copy and have a central location for that, but,
Having done as-built prints, it doesn't necessarily help you a lot.
well, but
It's
it's
something.
nice to have them, I tell you. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Is there anything in the budget for replacing this stuff?
After the joint meeting regarding the senior center, we talked to the city, and we are probably going to take care of that this year.
Okay.
They want to have input on that, but we are going to collectively sit down and figure out something that works for both of us,
Okay.
because that issue, I think, has something to do with one of the remote mics, and it interfered with the frequencies, I believe. But yes.
Okay.
One thing that is not necessarily through facilities, but a major capital improvement project, that this board approved a $2.5 million project for IT improvements that includes switches and wires all the way to storage area network enhancements, and that's going to be pressed over 5 years to spread that cost out. So that is significantly going to improve the way the county operates. So that was also done out of this, part of this fund.
Okay, Sunny?
Joe, I see one of the key things that you've got in the 2019 budget is the installation of bulletproof glass at the Sheriff's Department, the Prosecutor's Office. Is that something will be done from local companies? I'm not real familiar with bulletproof glass, how that gets installed, and
Everything I'm doing here gives preference to local companies. I'm trying very hard to stay in the area. Even my bids, will focus a little bit more on local companies and scrutinize them a little bit better as everything comes in, and see if we can make it work to keep it here in town.
well, historically, this board has had a 5% differential to try to make sure that it stays within town, and I'm sure you were aware of that. So,
Correct.
just, we're truly trying to make sure we keep as much of it locally as we can.
Okay. Bob, do you have something
Yeah,
else for this?
Just pass back to your team our thanks for the job they're doing on trying to keep everything running around here. I know it's not an easy job all the time, and especially if you can't find prints and everything else and trying to reinvent the wheel each time. But, I appreciate what they're doing on trying to keep everything running here, so.
And we
They
have
were-
a lot of very old buildings.
They were very, very helpful with the pool project, with lots and lots and lots of little things. Painting
tremendous amount.
spots, yes. Yes, they were very, very instrumental in that. Very, very good job. Okay. We gonna move on?
Yep.
Okay?
Commissioner questions, we had a couple questions posed previously, and in your packet or on your desk is, as requested, the July 18th letter from the Department of Treasury indicating that there's no further action needed for our retirement system. There's also the deficit elimination plan that shows the debt that was retired in 2018. That is inclusive of the Lafreniere building and the DPW.
Yes. And Woodmere, the LEC was the one that was actually paid off this year. The Department of Public Works, the Franier Public Services Building is paid off in 2020. That's about a $450,000 balance yet over next 2019 and 2020. Probably have those amounts slightly wrong, but.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. OPEB amount that has been paid is $550,000, and we are at 19.84%. But again, the Department of Treasury notice to us indicates there's no further action needed. And you've been there's a listing of vehicles countywide. I can share with you that is probably not completely up to date, but it should be fairly accurate in terms of type of vehicle, department, and mileage is done, as I understand, twice a year, so you may have a mileage discrepancy.
Excuse me. Trying not to sneeze. Okay. Do you have any other general questions before we go on with the sheriff?
Nope.
Sheriff?
Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office. A couple things first. Commissioner Mayor, you had some questions on vehicles. After I'm done,
Okay.
we're happy to
Thanks.
answer those. And if any of you have any questions on any of our budgets, please don't hesitate to ask. Another thing, some time ago, Commissioner Follett requested a comparison between Garfield Township and the city of Traverse City, our activities in Garfield versus the activities in the city of Traverse City. We prepared that comparison and would like to present it to the board. I don't know if she wanted it individually or presented to the board, but we're happy to present that to the board at a November meeting. So she's not here, so anyway, we have that prepared and are happy to present that. I want to tell you that your administrator is doing an outstanding job. He's wearing the administrator's hat, not the undersheriff's hat. If he was wearing the undersheriff's hat, I wouldn't be here tonight. So I met with the administrator and Dean Bott on Tuesday and about our budget, 2018 budget and going forward the 2019 budget. We had a very good discussion. If you want an independent evaluation of that, ask Dean. So we're gonna have a surplus in our 2018 budget for several reasons, and you've seen a recommendation from the administrator on how to use that, and that's moving money from the 2018 budget into 19 to pay for patrol cars, which reduces the 2019 budget. We are currently working on a couple of additional minor, so to speak, remodeling projects in the jail, which will do a couple of things. It will improve our operations regarding visitations by attorneys or professional people, and it will also improve our inmate observability, if that's a word, in a couple of cells in the intake area. And basically, that's adding windows and new doors with larger windows. In regards to the position for central records, in December of 2015, we had a retirement. One of our records clerks retired. And in that division, we have a manager and 10 records clerks. There was a vacancy. One of the personnel retired, and because of the financial situation, we were told of the county, we agreed for 1 year to leave that position unstaffed. We made a deposit
in the Bank of Goodwill for the county. We ask for that position to be funded in 2017, 2018, and 2019, and have been denied that position. Why would we like to have that position funded and staffed? Typically, it has to do with typing reports. We have been as far behind as 250 to 275 reports that need to be typed. These are not priority reports, but they are reports that go along with police investigations. Currently, we're in the neighborhood, I'm told, of backlog of 50 reports. Now, those vary in length. It could be very short, could be very long. However, this is October. It's not June, July, August, and September. That's when it gets busy. Some of our staff request vacations at that time, and we try to accommodate them as best we can. We are continually months behind in reporting our crime statistics to the state. And when there are errors, those need to be corrected. There are many smaller tasks and projects that don't get done. For example, currently, we cannot compare our found and recovered property with stolen property. It's kind of just a mix-up, and it takes time to do that. When we purge records, old reports, our actual paper records, our computer system needs to be updated. And we don't have the time to do that. Yesterday, I saw 2 boxes of evidence tags from reports that have been closed out that need to be, the evidence that has been purged, those tags need to be attached with the original reports. They're just sitting in boxes, not being attached with the reports. We can't find my notes, but we have just completed typing some reports that were dictated in March and April. So this backlog goes back several months. And again, the length or size of these reports varies, but the point is, we're way behind. So this position has been vacant on our Goodwill in 2016 budget. We said we won't staff it, but we've been denied now 3 years. This is not an addition. It's just a vacancy that has occurred and has been unfilled. Now, I've talked, as you know, we handle the records for the city police department also, and they pay a portion of that budget. Currently, it's 22%. And I've been talking to Mr. Bott about this, and the billings have not included the county's, quote, overhead costs, if you will. And I believe we're going to change that and submit that bill to the city police department. We're also looking to sit down and speak with the city about increasing their share of the costs, so that there's a very good possibility that this position would be filled and funded with those increases in the billing to the city police department. So I would ask, and we can have, I'm willing to have further discussions, is that we sit down and speak with the administrator and the finance director and figure out how this will be, how we can do this going forward, and that possibly mid-year, when the city establishes their budget, hopefully they'll be on board with our plan, and we'll be able to get some increased funding to staff that. So that's where we're at with the records position.
Bob, did you have a question?
Yep.
Questions?
What would it take to get caught up? I mean, how many people do you think it would take to get caught up, and how could you do that without, I mean, could you contract that out for, say, 6 months? I know some of it's probably sensitive material, But could you contract that out for a small period to get the backlog caught up, and maybe it won't be quite so bad then?
We have discussed this, and the administrator will tell you, we have talked about this for 9 years.
Yeah.
On how to, which report should we type? Okay, we've looked at having a third party type these reports. All our officers dictate their reports. We've talked about just dictating them and storing them in the computer. And they're there, but it's an incomplete report, especially if people are following up on reports. They don't have the whole story. So we've looked at a myriad of ways to solve the problem. There are priorities that have to be typed, and the lower priorities, they just sit. And so is that report complete, or is there more to be done? It just depends on when the staff gets the time to type them. In addition to the other things I mentioned, which aren't getting done. So, do you want us to take care of all these little incidentals that we should be doing, but don't have the staff to do, and just let the untyped reports stack up, or let these go to the wayside, like filing the evidence tags, the lost and found and stolen stuff, making sure we get all our reports in on time to the state. So you do one, the other's going to lag. If you do the other's going to lag. At least, and we can get caught up by paying overtime, but that just takes care of typing the reports. These other things don't get done. So we just like to do what we're supposed to do in a timely fashion.
If you were caught up, do you think your current staff of 10 could handle the situation?
Well, assuming we always have 10 people, but when people leave, some work does not get done because the people aren't there to do it. We've been fully staffed, I should say, with the positions we have now that are funded, I think, for a year. So being fully staffed has made an impact on the number of reports that we do get typed.
And the reason I'm asking is I know this may sound minor, but there's probably some major implications in some of this in cases and whatnot, I would think. I just think that, to me, there would be some way, again, I don't know if you could hire temporary for some bit of time to get that backlog caught up, and maybe they can keep their head above water after that, but.
We have talked about this for years, and we've talked, so the office specialists are covered by the TPOM in the bargaining. We've talked to them about how we can work through the collective bargaining agreement to outsource typing. We've done that. They've agreed to, we've had several letters of agreement understanding to make an impact here. Your question is the question. It's what does it take to get caught up? And I don't think we've ever been caught up. So when I heard 50 reports were caught up, I was amazed at that. Because
Good or bad amazed?
Good.
Okay.
I mean, great, because maybe necessity is the mother of invention here.
Yeah.
I know that with the elimination of this, and the sheriff is right, 3 years ago I was screaming and hollering about this.
But you're not now.
I'm not now. But I understand the need. And the sheriff and I and the command staff for the last few years have had discussions about what is the relevance of a priority 3 report. Well, that doesn't mean anything to most people, but it means something to the gentleman sitting back here. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I understand the request wholeheartedly, but the sheriff's office has changed because of the denial of this position over the last 3 years. What we type, what reports we put onto it, we dictate versus what is a handwritten report or a ticket, it's all changed. So there have been many changes because of this decision that have driven the sheriff's office over the last 3 to 4 years. So one might say necessity is the mother of invention. It could also be what the workload is less. Mm-hmm. But the reality is the sheriff's office is a service-oriented sheriff's department. If they have a stolen bike, they want to have a document that says this bike is stolen. They want to have officers look at that. They want to have officers follow that report and solve that case. That's what they want to do. There have been technological improvements over the last 3 years. Well, not last 3 years. We now have a log, a bulletin on the email through Gmail that is, the exchange of information is extraordinary. And it's instantaneous, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, information that is shared with the officers. I have a belief that that is a way to exchange information versus a police report. So I understand the issue completely. I don't want to make that change right now because 3 years ago, we needed to have this reduction to manage a budget. Well, what happens next year in 2020 when the fund may need to be reduced again? Are we going to look for reductions again?
And the amount the city's been contributing has been an issue for years. So I know
Yes.
that we really need to get that addressed, because I'm willing to say, I think they probably could use another body in there, but let's get the city to help contribute to that. You know, and again, I know times change and everything, but, you know, when you're trying to climb up that mountain with a 100-pound backpack on, it's tough.
Yeah.
And it just, like I said, to me, I would love to see you somehow get caught up. And then, you know, in next years or whatever, then you look at it again and evaluate. Of course, it's hard to eliminate a position, but, you know,
Exactly.
I just think you got to do something to try to get caught up and
Well,
to get there.
as I said, you know, if it's a funding issue, we're going to look at that. And we're going to be speaking with the city. We have a contract with them. And it is available for review next year. And we'll be taking a look at that, I think, in June. We'll be doing it much sooner simply because the city's budget process starts after the first year, and they're on a June 1st or July 1 fiscal year. So they'll want to know about that. But we've discussed this internally also for some time, and I think it's probably time to move forward and act on that, especially with the indirect costs that we've talked to and how those are billed with Mr. Bott. So I think we can do that and come out not ahead, but come out even, and we'll get done what we're supposed to get done.
Ron, did you have a comment, and then we'll go to Sunny?
What I heard was you've been down one person for 3 years,
Yes.
and you're 50 reports behind.
Now we are.
I'm-
That's today.
Well, but it's, right, you're 50 reports. I mean, I think that's pretty good. But that, I mean, that's what I heard. You.
That's
In
correct.
36 months, you're down 50 reports.
Yes.
So,
And in July, we were down 250.
right. And-
So
And so if
I
we
assume
can
that,
outsource some staff to help, we're not stuck with having to get rid of staff later. You know, if we can outsource, subcontract some staff, if that's an option.
And that outsourcing has to be negotiated with the collective bargaining groups. But to the point, they will never be caught up. You could throw 3 bodies, they're going to find work. They're never going to be caught up. So the reason we didn't recommend it was the reasons that I've stated, that what I see currently, there have been some changes that have made an impact on the way that information is exchanged and recorded, and that, again, I just heard recently the 50 reports behind. When I have heard 450 or more behind, something has changed that maybe even I don't know about that has impacted that.
Sunny?
Well, lots of things have changed. The idea that we now have officers with printers in their cars and handing out the tickets, and we're not handwriting them and then tried to decipher them when they come back to the jail or back to the law enforcement center. All of those things have changed. The ongoing discussion of what percentage of central records should the city be paying, it is old discussion. You know, I've partaken in that discussion many, many times over the last few years that I've sat here, you know. I believe that we are not changing the staffing plan. The position is still in the staffing plan. If we can identify funding for it, either through a revised agreement with the city, I would support putting it in. Right now, I don't know exactly what the price tag of that position is. Somewhere along the way, we probably should ask that. But I guess the key point about it is, we're not eliminating it from the staffing plan. If we identify funding for that position, possibly by renegotiating the contract with the city, or what other means, then we choose to fund the position. But for right now, I support the idea of leaving it vacant at this particular moment. But I would like to know what that position actually, what's the price tag for that position.
50,000.
Is that the fully loaded cost? 50.
Okay,
Okay?
To start. That's the base wage, right? That's, yeah.
okay. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Sheriff.
Okay. I would like, at this time, to introduce the board to the new, hopefully, the new undersheriff, Mike Shea, who's sitting back here in the cheap seats with me, not over here where the important people sit. Mike scheduled to start the new position on Monday, October 4th, and I'm told his first 4 days will be spent in a jury trial. So he's not going to be in the undersheriff seat until the end of the week.
Do you mean November 4th? No.
You said October 4th?
Yeah. Oh, October 29th.
He starts Monday, October 29th. I'm sorry.
You said October 4th, so it was
Oh.
confusing.
October 29th.
Thank you.
We still have some details to work out regarding his starting salary. We've established what the salary range is, but where does he fit in that range? The sheriff, state law requires the sheriff to appoint an undersheriff. Now, when you look at the county's compensation policy, it talks about transfers and promotions and initial salaries. There are two different ways, the way I understand this, and I want to meet here in the next couple of days with the new HR director. Two different ways on establishing a salary for an undersheriff. If he or she is a county employee, you do it this way. If it's a non-county employee, you do it this way. And I think that's unfair. It's very restrictive if you are a county employee. So I'm hoping to sit down with the new county HR director and explain to her what this situation is, and hopefully we can get that resolved. I'm pretty confident that we can. Commissioner Mayor, your questions on our vehicle replacement policy or our vehicles?
Yeah, I just want to know that we're back in a normal pattern of rotating vehicles out because, when the economy was affected by the banking mortgage crisis and everybody was holding their purse closely, we may have gotten off track as far as the replacement cycle that we were in. We might have not replaced them as frequently as many cars. So I just want to know that we're working towards getting back to where we should be.
Well, we're trying. It all depends on the money. I think we have an outstanding vehicle replacement policy in that we just don't replace them at a certain mileage or a certain year. We look at every car. We log their maintenance costs and the condition of the vehicles. Obviously, this person drives a car differently than this one, differently than this one. So we may have a 4-year-old car that needs to be replaced, and we may have a 6-year-old car that doesn't need to be replaced. It depends on the mileage, the overall condition of the vehicle, things of that nature. And it's not just a flat 100,000 miles are gone.
But for a couple of years, maybe we were behind in replacing?
Yes, we've been behind, and we typically just look at the patrol vehicle. That's the biggest part of our fleet. A few years ago, we leased for a 5-year contract 16 unmarked vehicles for the detectives and the command staff. I can tell you, my vehicle was, I think, the oldest vehicle in the fleet. My philosophy is the people on the front lines, they need the best equipment. I'm not that important. When they need to go someplace, they need to get there. Their car needs to function properly so they can get there. I can tell you that my vehicle, the newer one, is not, it's probably 2 years, 5 months old. I've had absolutely no repairs, none, zero. And the gas mileage is better. And going into this, we said, we won't have repairs, the gas mileage will be better. So it's worked out very well. The patrol cars, yes, we have a certain amount, those need to be rotated. And then we have a whole other section of vehicles that, we have a 2002 GMC or Chevrolet pickup truck that may have 50,000 miles on it. Perfect. We use it all summer long. No need to replace it. It looks good, it runs good, so why would we replace that? Because it's more than 5 or 6 years old. So I think our policy
You look
is
at a lot of different
outstanding.
factors, not just age or mileage.
Oh, yeah,
You
correct.
take everything into consideration.
Yes, we do.
I don't know if you'd be interested, but I'd be interested in one of the departments in the county trying an all-electric vehicle. You may not be interested because you have to, they're on the road a lot of hours. It might be hard to charge up one, but it would be nice if somebody would try one and start working those into our county fleet of cars. So they're acceptable now.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Health Department had a couple hybrid vehicles a couple years ago. I don't know that they had anything all electric, but I don't know.
As far as we're concerned, our issue of those typically is size.
Well, not only that.
We need a
there's
little room.
The cost and the range. The sheriff's department gets stuck out in Fife Lake or up on the Penn. They're out there for a while running. You may have a problem getting
Yeah,
charged
it might be
up.
best for another department, but I did want to bring it up in case it didn't get mentioned later.
Yes.
Yeah, severe cold really reduces the distance and mileage they can go on with the all-electric, so, and we live in some severe
Did we
cold areas.
lease any of the patrol cars or just the DB's cars?
We only leased the non-marked units. And that was because we didn't want to punch a bunch of holes into the vehicles and then sell them again in 5 years. Enterprise, however, does currently have interest in working with us to discuss leasing patrol cars. And it's the same concept. But I think with the last couple of years not having to focus, the board approved that. That was a big step to go with a lease program because you're in the chute, right? You're replacing these cars in 5 years or you're buying them. The focus now has been on the marked cars. And I would dare say that Captain Clark would agree with me that we're within, on a yearly basis, a couple of vehicles, and we're going to be on tap for replacing those cars. And we have identified a way to fund the request of 9 patrol cars, correct?
Yes.
Out of funds in part from this year, moving forward.
I know the leasing saved us quite a bit of money. So I don't know if, like you said, I guess that would be in the discussions to see if the marked cars would save you that much too. I know they probably get used a lot differently and get beat up a lot more, you know.
Conceivably, yes.
Yeah.
That leasing, the whole premise of that project was to the end of the value of at the end of the lease is what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
So you can't run a patrol car up and down Hoosier Valley and down the roads and beat it up and expect to have a lot of value after 5 years.
The key piece of that is going to be see what those vehicles are worth at the end of the 5 years.
Correct.
To see how we are about rolling them in.
Yep.
Or whether we're going to have a huge deficit on those vehicles and we're going to end up kicking in a bunch of extra money.
Correct.
That's going to be the question. But I think, the discussion was pretty extensive about using them for administrative and DB cars. We should be able to control that better than we could for patrol cars.
And with the
Along with
exception of the
fact we have
sheriff,
a
the rest of the
horrible
guys
time
drive
with
really
patrol cars
well.
getting into accidents.
They're driven completely different. So,
Absolutely.
it just made sense to do those. It's for the most part, a normal vehicle that anyone else would own and drive. Patrol cars are different.
Well, and it's different today. We don't have to put big antennas sticking out of the top of our vehicles and all of those kind of things that we used to have to do. We used to have these 9-foot whips that bolted into the back fenders of every car we had.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that anymore.
No.
In year 6 of the lease, conceptually, year 1 of the second term is paid for because of the return on the vehicles at the end of the lease. And if it works out the way that they've presented, and I believe it will, it's going to be a pretty cool thing.
And those will be what, 2022?
2021, I believe, is that?
The end of 2021 going into
16.
Yeah, middle of the year.
Okay,
Any other questions?
Bob?
I got one, I don't know if you were gonna cover it or not, corrections. If you're gonna talk to any about corrections, I see you asked for an officer and that was not approved. Has the turnover slowed down at corrections, or?
That's a poor subject. No, it hasn't. Our issue is with staffing, and it has been for some time. I'm hoping, and I want to, I've read the comments by the new HR director about, going to find good employees. This is a good project for our corrections division. So we'll be talking to her about that.
Well, that's a tough job. I mean, it's important to realize that some people may not be aware of what they get into when they get into that position, and that's a tough.
It's not something unique to us. It is currently a problem statewide.
Yep.
Other departments are having a problem finding corrections officers, and so I'm hoping that she's got a crystal ball there someplace that will help us. I believe currently, they have a captain, lieutenant, an administrative sergeant, and 6 shift sergeants, and 34 corrections officers. We have maybe 3 vacancies as of right now. However, the actual number of vacant bodies does not concern me. We have a schedule. There's 34 slots there for the deputies. And I think right now there are 9 or 10 vacancies on that schedule. People in training, vacancies, people off in military leave, whatever the case may be. So if we have 3 vacancies, that would be great. But we have more than that on the schedule, and that's the problem. We are changing the way we do business over there because of that. I can tell you we're boarding inmates out. The population right now is low. That's good. Why is that? I don't know. We're trying to figure that out. We're talking with the prosecutor's office, with the courts, and trying to get some data on why is it low. I'm sure it'll go back up. But we're changing a few things. As I mentioned earlier, we're trying to make a couple of minor modifications. I didn't say they were cheap, but minor modifications to help us be a little more efficient in the way we operate, and make it easier on a couple of observation cells for the officers to do some better direct observation of inmates.
I guess if you can hang on, hopefully that, the next board will get around to approving the jail and get that going. I mean, we have to get one, and hopefully that will lighten the load using technology and everything else in a better facility.
Well, it does, and it's the working conditions too. If you go to a new modern facility, they're big, open, bright, clean. It's a working atmosphere, I think, too. The clients aren't going to change, but the working atmosphere, there's room for improvement there with what we're working with.
Sonny?
Tom, one of the things that, we always get into a discussion this time of the year is the drug enforcement problems we have in our community. We all know we have a lot bigger drug problem than we like to admit on a regular basis. I know we've had as many as 2 or 3 people in TNT at one time or another. Where are we with that?
We have one person assigned to the drug team. There were 2 people there. Captain Clark can speak to this probably better than I, but our calls for service just went up. So it's like, okay, we're not going to do this. We're going to keep a person in the in the narcotics team. They are very busy. Things change there all the time. Thanks to Captain Clark, we're doing a very proactive response to some of this with his interdiction team. They're out at certain areas
That's
looking
specifically
for.
what I wanted to talk about, is
Pardon?
the fact, that's specifically what I wanted to talk about, is we know what the TNT team is doing.
Right.
What are we doing locally? Because I think we've made some pretty big strides to make that better over the
Yes.
last couple of years.
And you can see it
I
in-
think the public needs to know that, too.
Right, I'll let Captain Clark address that, but in the staffing plan for a sergeant, and I think it was 3 or maybe 4 officers, that was for a full-time interdiction team. It wasn't part-time as it is now, but he can speak to that. I might also add that, speaking of the drug problem, there's a ballot issue coming up, whether to legalize recreational marijuana in Michigan or not. And if that passes, I think we just looked at what's happened in other states. And if we do that, what that says to us is that's job security. That's going to be job security for our officers, because there's going to be a problem. Whether it's fatal traffic accidents involving kids and more possession, look at the statistics, look what's happened in other states. I don't think anyone should think that Michigan is going to be different. You know, you can't have it if you're under 21. Well, gee whiz, you can't have beer if you're under 21 either. But I bet you there's some high school kids know somebody that'll go buy beer for them, and I'm guessing there's some high school kids that are going to know somebody's going to go buy marijuana for them. Those are the plain and simple facts. So that's the way we view this at this time. The other issue is on the road, and that there's no test for impairment due to marijuana. There's 5 counties that are doing a pilot program right now, but in my opinion, you got the cart before the horse here with that issue. So,
Bob?
Cat Clark, do you want to make any?
Have you looked at the few states that have had this, Colorado and whatnot, and their increase? Because I know they've had an increase in some crimes, driving under the influence, that kind of stuff, a lot of crashes. Have you looked at, and this probably isn't maybe the time, but have you looked at what you think potentially it might add to your workload?
Well, if you like, there's some very good analysis of that, typically done by the Colorado HIDA, High Intensity Drug Activity Team. They keep and track all these statistics, and I have that, and I can send that to you.
Yeah, if you don't.
It shows everything's going up. Hospital visits with young people, and this isn't your old-time marijuana. This is high-potent stuff, and people don't realize
I think it's going to
that.
pass, but I think people are going to be surprised at the impact that you're going to see
Sure.
with this, because it isn't harmless like
Well,
everybody thinks. I mean,
like I
there's,
said,
there's
why
some
sh-
medical purposes for it, and you can debate all that other stuff you want, but there's going to be some impacts in law enforcement and to the community for that.
Yes, and are we going to be different than Colorado? I don't think so. Or the other states? I don't think so. And if we are, I wish someone would tell me how we are.
We should be and tax it higher, and that's how we should be.
Okay. Do we have Captain Clark who'd like to come and say something? Thank you. Is there a question, or you just have something to say?
Two sheriffs walk into a bar.
Right into the microphone.
I guess, Chris, what I'd like to do is have you just kind of describe the interdiction team and how that's working and
Well, about 3 years ago, we were looking at our crime statistics. We saw an increase in the drug crimes. So we kind of decided, what can we do here? We looked at what other departments are doing, and we began the interdiction team, which is an on-call, sometimes scheduled team that went out and they have some special training, and they target those areas where the drug crimes or any other crimes are high. I could tell you off the top of my head, if the team wasn't in existence last year, there probably would have been 250 less drug arrests last year. First year, they had way more than that. And they're only on a part-time basis. We call them in on overtime, or we schedule them when we can due to scheduling on straight time as well. That was one of the budget requests. This year was for 1 sergeant and 3 deputies to get them to go full-time. And they do work with TNT quite a bit. Which is nice about the interdiction team is when TNT needs assistance, I can bring in the interdiction team to assist them as opposed to taking shift strength off the road, and they can help them out. So now we're not taking deputies that are out on the road, supposed to be taking calls to help TNT out. These guys can come in and help them out. Any other questions?
Tom?
I know in the past, and I don't know when it stopped, but some patrol cars were marked, but I think they were county cars, that they were alcohol enforcement. It said it on the car. Did that do any good, or is that something maybe we want to revisit?
I haven't seen
Yeah.
that in years.
Yeah.
Those are special grants through
OHSP.
OHSP for the drunk driving enforcement grants or seatbelt grants. And there's mixed reviews as to whether or not those were successful or not.
Because I think if that was in the vicinity of the bars that are over-serving the most, because I believe some bars do, that it might cause people to behave better, perhaps. At least they're not going to get into an automobile. If it looks like we're intentionally looking for the alcohol violations and driving.
Then you'll get accused of entrapment. We've had that discussion too.
Well, to the sheriff's credit, did you mention it already, Sheriff? Received a $26,000 grant from OHSP for alcohol enforcement, so we started implementing that 2 weeks ago, I think, throughout the year, so that's something we're doing as well.
I think we do a great job here of capitalizing on all of the grant money from secondary road through the highway, highway safety grants. We really do a good job of seeking out those grants and actually getting them.
Including marine safety grants, snowmobile enforcement, previously ORV, not to mention the grants, not grants, but relationships we have with the townships that is literally more than $1 million revenue for the
Community police
for the
office.
sheriff's office.
MMRMA grants.
MMRMA grants, RAP grants, things of that nature.
Go ahead, Bob.
I haven't researched it that much, but if this recreational marijuana passes, is there any more revenue coming in from that tax for law enforcement?
I'm not sure. I know that the Medical Marijuana Act allows for a certain amount of directing of
But
some
that was
funds.
for inspections and whatnot,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
but I don't know that this law, this is
I
a
haven't really looked at it
change to
that close.
Constitution, correct?
'Cause that may be a way to fund the
Yeah.
the force in for that, so.
I think it does. I think some of the money that's collected in tax is for enforcement.
It's a complicated formula, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get $4 probably, but,
Any other questions?
Questions for Captain Clark?
thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Chris.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other general questions about the budget? Or do we have any department heads who have anything that they'd like to say about the budget? Now's the time to speak up. See a lot of, no, no. Go ahead, Ron.
This is regarding the revenue side of the budget. I don't know if it was in 16 or, might have been in 2016. The drain commissioner borrowed $300,000 for the drain on Cass Road. And how are we getting that back? I mean, it's a county loan, county-backed loan, isn't it? It's not?
We did not play their full thing.
Who's paying the bill on that at this point?
Property owners, that'll be set.
So are
The
they,
district.
so are they just, is the bank or whoever has the loan, are they just hanging on to it till it?
I believe it was refinanced. I know Steve Largent is here, he can speak on that.
Okay, and then also like the revolving grain fund, we added money to that. Are we getting that back?
Those assessments, and Steve may want to come up as well, but those assessment districts have not been set up yet to recollect that or collect that revenue back for the county, but they will be.
Okay, but is that logged any place as money that we should be seeing coming in, or is that just money that went out and we're not accounting for it?
Well, it's accounted for in the fund. You have for the drains, the recent increase in the advance to the drain revolving fund for both Old Mission and Silver Lake.
Right.
Those costs are accounted for in separate funds, so we know what, we have to recover through the special assessment, but we have not set up those assessments yet. Cass Road, I'll let Steve answer that. I mean, I think we're very close to having final design and going out to bid, but I'll hand that. But ultimately, there would be a special assessment district that would be established, and the property owners that benefit from that would pay for those costs. And there's a county commitment as well for part of that, the general benefit. But with that, I'll hand it off to Steve.
Yes, the Cass Road drain is going out to bid in January. We delayed it until then so we can get better prices. And then the bond is due in December, and I'll be working with Roger Sweats from Dickinson Wright, who is the bonding company, and then and the bank to get an extension on that, so that probably a 3-month extension on that. Then once the bonds are sold, that will cover the that part of the note, the drain note, and then the special assessment district, for those in that Cass Road drain district will be paying for the total cost of the project, which includes the county and the Grand Traverse County Road Commission and others in the township and others.
Okay. And is that the same process then for Old Mission and Silver Lake? And
Correct.
And isn't Duck Lake also, didn't we also
Yes.
put some money into Duck Lake?
Exactly. But all these take time, and right now with my limited time, I have to prioritize, and Cass Road is the top priority right now. Even though we did clean out the Old Mission drain, as we said we were going to, we got that going. We did inspect the Silver Lake outlet, and then we also have our triennial inspections going on right now for the DEQ report.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Or Sunny, go ahead.
Well, I have a
Thank you,
horrible
Steve.
time putting stick-it notes in my laptop, or my tablet.
You want that?
Dean, I was curious on the revenue side of the budget in the first page. Licenses and permits in 2017 were 219,780. The 2018 budget was 52.5. We've so far taken in 51.3, and we're budgeting $9,000.
The big change there was, in those earlier years, we had the soil erosion function as a department in the general fund. In 2018, that was transitioned to the health department. Most of that difference was the soil erosion permits that were collected. So it was in the general fund as a license and permit, but with that transitioning to the health department fund, Fund 222, you don't have that revenue.
I was sure you'd have the answer, but
Well, I
it just looked
didn't
really funny
initially,
when
but your administrator did, so he should never let me forget that, to be honest with you.
I'm sure he'll remind you at least once.
Bob?
He got me with that one.
Something I would like to see at our next meeting, which is what, November 7th?
Correct.
Yes.
Day after the elections. I would like to see what the cost would be of a sergeant and 2 deputies and 3 deputies and 4 deputies. Because I think at that point, we may need a dedicated team. And I would just love to see what that dollar value would be. Like I said, maybe I'm just thinking worst case scenario for workload and everything else, but and maybe I'm the only one thinking that, but I just would like to see it at the meeting. And
Okay.
Well, do you have an estimate of what that was? Yeah, we didn't fill it, I know that.
It was probably in the original request, but I'm going to guess 300,000 or higher.
Yeah.
300?
Yeah. And the deputies will start out at 50+ thousand a year with benefits, or 50,000 a year, and the sergeant, of course, is even higher than that. So you got to have cars, and uniforms, and guns, and
Could be
Electric cars aren't
500,000.
cheap, so.
they're not. Electric cars are not cheap. They're quiet though. Maybe that they can sneak up on the drug dealers.
Now, I know some of the community officers have bicycles though, Tom. So,
That's a good
and
thing.
one of them, the one in Fife Lake, I don't know if he's the only one, but he's got the electric assist. So, but
It's good exercise.
We can get that for you.
Yeah, like I said, and again, maybe I'm Chicken Little here, I don't know, but I just think that, with the opioid crisis, and then like I said, I believe it's gonna pass. I mean,
Well, I think you're right personally, but that's a big swing. It's be a significant dollar amount. I'm going to guess between 350 and 400
Yeah.
just by spitballing, depending on 3 or 4 deputies. And
and the other part would be, what would be the minimum level you would need? I wouldn't want to do it halfway. I have another term for that I don't want to use.
Thank
Because
you.
you either do it or you don't. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
we get it.
So.
We know you and we understand what you really wanted to say. Tom?
Well, it's separate from those subjects, and we have mentioned grants and our success in getting grants. I'm not so sure that if we had one central person that is our head grant writer for the county, that job would just pay for itself. And that's be something to consider, instead of individual departments all doing the work on their own. And it would be interesting to see if we could up our funding through grants as another revenue source. I'm guessing that we can. I think that there's unlimited potential, actually, in seeking grants, and that maybe we need somebody who is a grant writer to basically earn their own pay.
Okay,
okay.
noted. I saw Nate writing that down. Okay,
Have we included in the 2019 budget funds for a deputy administrator?
Yes.
okay.
That process is ongoing, just as a catch-up.
I knew there's been a lot of discussion, I just, I didn't find it by line item in my tablet, so.
Yeah, I have 40.
My old book, I would have found it.
I know, and you would have put a sticky note there.
I have 47 applications, and my priority was to get Ms. Kinsey on board so she could help me go through that process, and, we will get it done. And,
You're doing a great job so far, so.
well, thank you.
I mean, I still think that position is needed.
Yeah.
But I think you're doing a good job, great job. So you and your team, I have no complaints right now. So,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
No.
Well,
Very
not in
good.
regard to that, anyway.
Well, I got one.
I feel the same way. Yes. Do you have anything else?
One thing, we have an allocation in the 2019 budget for the EDC of $25,000. I spoke with the EDC. They would like to consider a request of $50,000 because they are transitioning to an EDO, and there's concern that they may need additional funds to fairly represent the economic development ventures of the county. And their goal is, I think, very preliminarily, to get surrounding townships to participate in assisting to fund that EDO in terms of what the governmental input would be. And there's a lot of discussion about what that government assistance would look like. It's significantly less than 50%, so they want it to be primarily funded by private donations and private ventures versus public funds. So, and they've used the term 80-20 and 90-10, so they have something in there. They have some concerns and questions about what level of funding they may need to transition to an EDO. So as recently as, I think last week, I was asked if we could double that allocation. And I thought that would be a good point for the board to hear and discuss if you so choose.
Sonny?
Well, I've always contended the budget is a fluid document. I like the $25,000 in there as a placeholder. If in fact the EDO does in fact happen, and they can bring us something that shows the private participation, the participation by some of the townships, I'm willing to talk about another amending an appropriation to them. We will have some funds somewhere available, either from a contingency fund or from surplus that we could possibly find additional funding if we had to. But I'd like to see exactly what that organization is going to look like and who's participating in at what level.
Very well.
Okay.
That's
Anybody
my
else on?
opinion. I don't know about
Anybody else on that?
No, it sounds reasonable to me.
It does. I think they
I
have
think
to.
it sounds reasonable.
I think they have to, kind of, I don't want to say prove their worth, but I guess that's the only way to put it. Prove, here's what we're going to do with it, or what we've done so far, and this is why we need more.
And that's what we ask of every department.
Pretty much.
That comes in here. I mean, you ask Wendy, anytime that she comes in here, we always say, well, what is this gonna be used for, and what do we gain from it, right, Wendy?
Yeah, so, okay.
But just also,
Anything
just
else?
as
Yes.
a one point of, there is no money currently dedicated in the 19 budget for the pathology, anything to do with the regional pathology facility. So there may, again, to Sonny's point, there may be a need to come back at some point in 19 and say, we're moving in a direction now that's going to cost some funds, and we can make adjustments at that time.
And that's important to, I mean, I'm not on that committee, but that's important to note that, you know, because there was an article, I think, today about it. And, you know, when you first see that 1.5 million, you're like, wow, that's a lot. But it's not in the big scheme of things, and I think eventually
It's costing us $500,000 a year
it'd be
right
more
now.
cost effective for us to have it here by far, so.
Includes operational costs.
Yes.
Yes, and there are some partnerships to be had with some of the other counties
Yeah, so
nearby, so
it's definitely
that's
something
movable.
To look at, you know, in the near future to move
Yes.
forward on that, so. But.
Okay? Anybody else? Okay.
I want
You
to
have something?
commend the administrator and staff for the preparation of this budget.
Absolutely.
You know,
It's the best
I think it's a
pros-
great
process I've been
document, you
through.
know. I was, you know, a little issue with my
You know you
sticky
want your
notes,
book.
You know, I was, you know.
Wish we lacked
Dean-
my
Dean's got your book
said
right
he'd
there.
print me- Dean said he'd print me one, and I will take the opportunity to review it by the normal methods. But, you know, I do appreciate the fact that we do have a good document, and, you know, I think we have it more than anything else, we have it in a timely manner.
Absolutely.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a lot of time now to look at this and really digest it moving forward. And, you know, like I said, I think the fact that we're not increasing really the staff that much does give us some play.
Yeah.
If we do decide to add some deputies and whatnot, so, you know, and look at that, so.
Yeah, I've never liked getting it in the last meeting in December,
Yeah, that.
saying you have to pass it,
That
because
4
this
pages,
is it.
20 minutes before the vote didn't work for me.
Right. So this year and last year, too, have been much, much better, so.
And the credit does go to elected officials, the department heads, the staff internally, they busted their humps to get this to you, so, but thank you. So
Okay.
to that end, my goal would be on November, as stated in the October 3rd meeting, my goal would be to have the public hearing on the budget on November 7th. We will bring forward the information that you requested tonight and give you ample time to review it. My request would be that if you have a substantive change to the budget, that we get that early enough that we can prepare proper documentation so we can ratify the budget on the 7th. If it doesn't work, we have, as you said, another month and a
More time.
half to digest it and work through it. But in a perfect scenario for Nate Alger, I would love to see it ratified on the 7th. A couple things of note. We currently have a ratified agreement with the POAM. We are in the middle of discussions with a couple other 312 groups that, and I think we'll come to a successful resolve soon. If that happens on the November 7th meeting, assuming that the budget is ratified, I think we would like to come to you and start talking about the cost of living adjustments that we've talked about in closed session and the other monetary
Other stuff.
incentives that we've talked about in closed session. I would like to talk about that on the 7th as well and maybe get approval from the board to move forward with those concepts
In open session this time?
in open session.
Okay.
Because on November 2nd, we are actually having some discussions for reopeners with 4 or 5 units, and this would be a very good time for us to have this discussion with the board as well, so we can start moving forward.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. We will move on to second public comment. If you have any public comment, this is your chance. Step right up. I know, we don't make it easy to get up there, sorry.
This is the second time I've heard this fallacy
Can you
about.
let us know who you are and your address, please?
Carolyn Dulay, Hazlet, Michigan. I just
Okay.
happen to be here tonight. But this is the second time I have heard this fallacy about Colorado. When they approved recreational marijuana, the increase in population was 10,000 people a month for I don't know how many months. That's a lot. My son-in-law works for waste management in Denver, and I said, can your facility, take care of that? He very proudly said yes, and he gave, 20 years down the road or so. And also, the accidents aren't the only thing that went up. So did the price of houses. The house next to my neighbor's was one story. It was sold for $250,000. I just wanted to.
Okay.
You have to have the full story.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else for public comment at this time? No, nobody's looking up. Okay. All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Well, with that, we are adjourned.
Excellent.
We're good.
Are
Thank
we
you very much.
canceling tomorrow?
What's that?
No.
Canceling tomorrow's meeting?
No, we're not going to come tomorrow. You can if you want, but
I know.
we're not going to be here. Okay.
Awesome.
That went very well, I thought.